Hello, my friends. John LaRuffa here with another rules speed through. And in this episode, I'm going to teach you how to play Andromeda's Edge, and I'm going to teach you how to do the solo mode that's only found in the expansion. So you have to either have the deluxe version of this game or, like me, just have the standard retail version plus the expansion. This is going to help you understand the flow of the game and get you back to playing it if you've read the rules before and it's been a little bit of time, or if you want to see how it all looks when you play it. There may be some small things or edge cases I'm not going to cover here, but I'm just trying to help people learn the flow. Inevitably with this game, I think you're going to be referring to the rules for some nitnoid stuff or some small things or for the glossary. But let's go ahead and get started and we'll see how it goes. Okay, folks, it is usual. Please like and subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't done so already. And if you have, I do really appreciate that support. Thank you very, very much. So I have put this game out here, and some of the stuff doesn't quite match up. For instance, the places on the tracks here and what I've got here don't match up. I did this just so that I can teach the game. So don't look and say, oh, you've got 4 of these blue out here. Why aren't you level 4 or whatever? It's not the point. I just set this up to teach it. So I'm going to go ahead and give you an overview of what you see here. Make sure that when you do the setup, of course, you follow all the directions. The setup is pretty lengthy, so I'm not going to go over it because that'd be a 20-minute video by itself, but I think you can follow the directions and just take it step by step, and you'll get there, okay? Now, what you see here is the blue player is you, so this is going to be the actual active player, and the white is going to be the Unity player. Unity is the bot in this game, all right? You have these 2 amazing player aids right here. One for Unity, front and back. One for you, front and back. These are awesome. They tell you almost everything you need to know to keep yourself on track. But there's, of course, going to be some edge cases or other things you might need clarification with. And I highly recommend that you download upload the rule books in digital form into Notebook LM on Google and ask that all the questions you have. It'll make it a lot faster for you to get those small things answered that you might be struggling with. So first thing I'm going to do is just say, like I said, this is already laid out much further than would be normally for the beginning of the game, and I'm just using it to teach. So you have 3 types of spaces in this game. You have the nebula spaces that are all up here. You have the base spaces that are over here, and you got the planet spaces. And I'm not going to cover any of the optional content with regards to the tiles or whatever. I'll leave that for you to check out. So you have these 3 types of spaces, and the spaces themselves, when you go to them, there are 3 basic actions you will do. If you go to a nebula space, the only way you can get there is with a ship that allows for the voyage action, which would either be your science vessel right here, and that's printed on your area, or if you get an upgrade like this scout upgrade could allow you to go there directly as well. And these upgrades I'll talk about in a little while. So the only way to get to those are to have that ability, and you can see that ability right here on the board in small white, all right? When you go there, you will get whatever bonus resource might be present. For instance, this is a bonus resource on here. You'll also be able to collect any of the lost planet nebulas or the orphan planets, can't remember what they're called, but basically these chips, and you hold them in your moon's area, and it's not a planet, it's a moon. You put it in your moon's area, and you can assign that as a free action at any time during your turn, and sometimes even during the opponent's turn. And then you will be able to look at the top 2 event cards, okay? And the event cards are going to be in this event deck over here. You're going to look at them, and you're going to decide which one you want to keep on the top and which one you want to put on the bottom. So I could go ahead and I could put this one at the top and this one in the bottom. And why do I go to the nebula spaces? Because a substantial amount of points are going to be scored during the game based on what the top of the event card says. So, for instance, in this one, you would get 1 point for each. You would look at your track, where you are on the blue track. In this case, I'm at 9. And then you would subtract any damage you have on your modules. I have 1 damage here, so that'd be 8. I'd score 8 points, okay? If you had a bunch of damage, you'd score less. Or if you're much higher on the tracks, you'd score more. So you want to try to align these event cards with where you are in your current game state. So that's what the nebulas are for. Then there are the base tiles like this. And these tiles will have a variety of different things on them. In this case, this one lets you 2 times buy either one of these or one of those twice, or 2 of those or 2 of those. Okay? And to buy them, you have to spend the amount shown on the board in these areas. You can buy whichever one you want, and you have to complete your action before you refill. So it's not like you buy one, refill, then buy again. You have to buy one or the other and then be done. Also, you can decide to buy only one, but if you do that, you must discard a different one. And you must buy the one first before you discard second. So it's not like you could discard, make things cheaper, and then buy. Okay? So basically, you're always going to remove 2 from here. And it's the same thing with that other tile over there with these blue and yellow tiles. When you purchase a module, you will always move up on the track based on this icon right here, and they're color coded. So if I bought this module, I put it over here in my module section, and I would move up on the track. Okay, that's a very important concept in this game. And that's these type of base cards, but there's other ones that I'll describe in a second. There's the one that lets you build, it lets you build a development. There's ones that let you get more tactics cards, etc. And then there are planet tiles like this. When you use a planet action, you'll go there and you'll take the top moon and you'll put it in your moon area, and that's it. That's all you're doing. But the important part about the planet actions is you are going to be trying to put your transports on there in order to eventually, hopefully, use this action right here, development, to build a specific type of development on this undeveloped planet. Only one development per planet, so first come, first served. But until someone builds one, you can go to the planet again and again and get the other moons out. And even when someone builds one, you can still return to the planet. It's just once someone has built a development on there, you cannot have somebody else build a development on there. So those are the 3 types of planets. These tracks over here have to do with a bunch of different upgrades and different things that are going to happen throughout the game. But most importantly, you'll see over here, it'll say, I'm going to move this closer now so you can kind of see what we're talking about. It's going to say level 1, level 2, level 3. That has to do with, at the end of the game, when you have built a development of that type, where is your marker? If your marker is right here, then you would score for the level 1 point amount, which is 5 points. So for instance, look at these cards over here, the red, 5, 7, and 10 for the red cards. And so that has to do with if you built the red structures, how that goes. So the further you go up on each of the tracks, the more your developments are going to be. The other things are specific to the tracks. So for instance, you will get, when you cross over to this, well, first of all, anytime you see this spot right here, you're going to move the event token up 1 slot. The event token is over in this space over here. And that's how you're going to trigger the progress of the game and I shouldn't say the progress of the game, but the events come out. So in the 1-2 player game, it starts over here. And every time you see one of those icons, you're going to move it to the slot next. Once it gets to this area, you'll do exactly what the event tells you to do, or the event phase tells you to do, and I'll tell you about that at the end here, okay? There's also places where you can get these kinds of tokens. These tokens do a variety of different things. For instance, this will let you move up on, this will let you get a free module, but there's all sorts of things in here. That moves you up on the science track, etc. Over here, when you see this action, it lets you play one of those ship upgrade cards that you have, and you can get a free ship when you do it. So that means you get to choose one of these, okay? And you get to put it on here free, and you get a free ship. Normally, you have to pay for ships, which is what's written up here. I'll tell you about that in a second. Here, you might get one of these red tokens, or if you just land in these spaces when they're already taken, you get the 2 points. Here, at the end of the game, you get 1 or 2 points for every tactics card you have left. The tactics cards are seen over here. This is not a tactics card. And then over here, this upgrades your hand limit. So those are what the tracks cover. Now, how do I take turns in this game? Well, there are 2 types of turns you're going to take. There's a launch turn, and then there is a return to station. On the launch turn, that's how you're going to take your vessels out and put them on the board. And there's a couple of rules to follow. First of all, there's the initial launch. When you do an initial launch, that means the first time you put a one of your ships on the board, you must put it in an unoccupied area, meaning nothing can be there, okay? That means none of your ships, none of your opponent's ships, no raiders, but it can be in a spot that has a development. So when I look at this over here, if I wanted to do my first launch, I could put any of my available ships over here, 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 etc. I could move them here. That's fine because it's a development. It doesn't matter. That's okay. But I could not put it over here. I could not put it on top of that. Well, actually, let me be clear here. So I can't put it on any enemy ship area. Okay. But let me verify something. Right. Yeah, you cannot launch right with a raider. That's not allowed. You can, again, on the development, but any kind of ship or raider token, you cannot launch there for your first ship launch, okay? And subsequent ones, you might be able to, but not here. So let's say I put it over here. This becomes the active space, okay? And in the active zone or active region, I will go ahead and I will take that action. So in this case, I'll carry out this specific action. I can also, at the time, do any free actions that I want. For instance, I could play a special development card if it's still at an ability, which would be these cards right here. Let's say I need some resources, okay? I could play this card right now, do the resource conversion, I'd flip it over. I wouldn't have that card anymore from a standpoint of playing it, but I could get those resources. I could also recruit my leader. Basically, I take the leader off my board, put it onto my player area in the leader spot. I could use the benefit of a discovery card or a supremacy token. So a discovery card would be one of those cards where I'm playing something that's like on any of my turns. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. A discovery token or a supremacy token. Pardon me. So these tokens right here, or these tokens right here, the red ones. I could play any of my tactics cards that say play on any player's turn or something like that, right? So whenever they tell you to do that, I could do that at this point. I could also collect a bonus resource. So if I had gone here, I pick up that bonus resource, which most of the time you'd want to do. And then I could use any special faction ability that I might have that might pertain to the situation. So I can do all those things, but for sure, I must activate the tile. I'm not allowed to move to a tile unless I could take the action on it. That is not allowed, okay? Now, if there is a planet that's empty of moons, you would just get that resource, but that would still count as activating it, okay? So once I've done that, and I've taken the action, then I have to check for Raider Strike. What Raider Strike means is that all of the different raiders have something, well, a lot of them have some specific ability that has to do with their Raider Strike that might come into play. Okay, and this isn't the first turn, but if it's in a subsequent turn, if you're in the same area where they are, they're automatically going to attack you. Now, if you are not in the area where they are, but they are within range. So for instance, the range of this flying saucer guy is 2. If I had moved here, he is in range, he would come and attack me, and we would initiate a battle. And in the solo game, as soon as that happens, the solo opponent, the unity opponent, is going to bring this unit, if it's on the board, with infinite range, it always has infinite range, to the battle as well. And it is also going to bring any other units that are within range. The only exception is if it has a transport that is on an undeveloped area like this. It will not bring that in. It wants to leave this here so it can play a development later. So that is possible. Also, what I should mention is, because of the solo game, whenever you put your ships on the board, you're always going to put this little guy right there with him. And that Unity probe is basically just centering the AI around where you are at the moment, okay? Then we're going to conduct a battle, all right? Now, a battle works like this. The first thing we do is see about escalating. So, for instance, he moved over here. We're going to conduct the battle. Escalation. That means any ship within range can join in the battle. I already told you he's going to join in. But also, I have a ship up here This is a range 2. I can join in too, so I can bolster my forces. Any ship within range, and the range is shown, I'll just show it in this upgrade token, as this number right here. This is the amount of dice you're going to roll for the ship. This is the amount of range it has. So anyone within range may optionally join Orion. I always want to come Orion. Unity is going to join as long as he can get there, and he can always get there if he's on the board. Then what you do is you go to a diplomacy phase, and you will determine what is going to happen if you're going to play diplomacy cards. You might have a diplomacy card, and if you do, like this one says diplomacy, you can play that card, okay? And you're going to do this in turn order. The AI, the Unity, is always going to draw off the top of this deck and play their diplomacy card. These are always diplomacy cards for them. That is going to specifically modify the battle. Some of them say nothing happens. Some of them say battle ends. Like this one, the battle ends. Boom, done. As soon as they play that, it's over. No more battle. Nothing. There's no winners. There are no losers. You do whatever the card says. Some of them just say no effect. All right. So there's all sorts of different ones here that can happen. This is a guaranteed 6 for him. He adds an additional 6. This allows him to move up on the supremacy track if he wins the battle, etc. So those things happen. And then after that, you go through the battle preparation phase. Now, some cards, tactic cards, might say during the battle preparation phase, you do something. In the case here, this is where you're going to figure out how many dice you're going to roll. And in order to do that, I'm going to show you the player aid here. Pardon the camera. You're going to look right here. This is, by the way, a great summary of the battle. You're going to see how many ships are, you're going to look at I'm sorry, not how many ships, the amount of ships that are there. You're going to sum up all the dice value to a maximum of 6. You can never roll more than 6 dice, doesn't matter how many ships are there. Then, if you are next to one of your developments, for each adjacent development you have, in this case, I have one right here. This is adjacent. I roll an extra die for that. Then if I want, I can spend a lightning bolt to roll any amount of dice equal to the amount of energy, not lightning bolt, but energy tokens. Those are these tokens right here. I can spend any additional amount of those to add additional dice to my dice pool, up to 6. And then finally, you're going to have what is called a targeting value, which is a maximum of 5. That is equal to the total number of ships you have, unless you have some special modifiers. So for instance, one of my asymmetric bonuses for this faction says, if I had spent any energy to gain additional battle dice, I also get +1 targeting for this battle. So normally I would get a targeting value of 2, but if I spent that energy, it'd be a target value of 3. And what that means is anytime you roll the dice for this battle, if you don't at least get a 3, if you get lower than that, you must re-roll until you get at least a 3 or higher. Okay? So you're going to sum up the values that you have. You're going to look at the values of the raiders, and they have an number of attack dice they have, and they may have something else, other things down here. Like for instance, this particular raider shows, okay, it has a targeting increase. So his targeted value will be 2 instead of just 1. All right, so pay attention to that. And then you're going to do the exact same thing for the Unity player. They're going to see how many dice they're going to roll. In their case, they roll 3 dice because they have this ship here. This, again, this probe does nothing at all except for helping him move. So he never contributes anything. All right, and also, don't forget, the Unity player would also contribute an extra die because they're adjacent to one of their developments too. And again, the development is specifically this card on top of their transport ship. This is an undeveloped area. So you're going to take all those dice and you're going to roll them, okay? And when you roll them, so let's just see here. Let's take a look at what we had. So that's, this is the saucer. So he's going to have 4 dice for him. And then we're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4 for me. All right, plus the adjacent, so that's 5. And then we have 3 plus the adjacent for him, that's 4. So it's going to look like this. This is our dice pool. All right, you're going to roll all of these in one roll. Okay, we're going to roll them right here. And then, like I said, we look at targeting values. Okay, so the first thing I notice is The targeting value of 1, no problems with. This is for the Raiders, okay? So they're locked. That's their amounts. 2 6s, a 5, and a 4. The targeting value for the white player or the Unity player was 1, so there was no 1s rolled, so we don't have any issues there, okay? And again, it's actually 1s don't mean anything because you don't re-roll the number. You have to get, if you go below that number, you roll. Now my targeting value is 2, okay? So what that means is these 2s stay, but this 1 does not, all right? So I roll this, again, I get a 2. That's unfortunate. Let's say I had gotten a 1 again. If I got a 1 again, I'd re-roll, okay? But as it is, a 2 is what I got. I will compare these dice, and we're basically looking for the highest set first. So in this case, you can see 2 6s and a 4. I've already lost. I'm done. All right. Now they tie with the 2 6s. We go to the next set of highest dice, a 6 and a 3. So the Raider won the battle. In that case, we both lose. Both of our ships will be damaged. But we'll get to that spot in just a second. In just a second. With the Raider winning, nobody gets the reward for winning the battle, okay? And let me show you what that is. So after we've rolled the dice and done all that stuff, we look at the outcome. The winner gets 1 move up on the supremacy track, that's the red, plus they get the reward based on the Raider. Notice again how the Raider is the reward here. You're not going to have a battle. Well, I take that back. I take that back. Sorry, you might have a battle if you're fighting the 2 players. So anyway, this is the reward in this case. It was something specific about rescuing leaders for this card, but a lot of times it's going to be a move up in the track, okay? Now, the losers are not going to get any of those rewards, but what they are going to get is a tactical card, or if you have slotted a moon into your tactical slot, you could get that reward instead. So for instance, I have this slotted here. That means I could draw a tactics card, or I could get 1 credit, all right? The thing about the Unity is the Unity never gets that consolation prize. If they lose, they just lose, okay? Now, after you have done this, all defeated ships, okay, basically get 1 damage. If you see out here, these, they don't have any shields. They automatically will go to the scrapyard. Scrapyard's over here. I'll talk about what that means in a second. But he has a shield, so he stays on the board, and I know he has a shield because of this little icon right there. What you're going to do is you're going to place a damage token, all right? You're going to place a damage token right on that spot right there, showing that he's damaged. And he's going to remain damaged until he returns to base or returns to station. Once he returns to station, he's going to heal up, or he plays a repair action. He can also heal up. But at this point right now, he's damaged. My 2 guys went to the scrapyard. That's where they're going to stay. They're effectively kicked off the board, and I've lost my presence. And that is all that can happen when you launch. Okay, so that's what the launch procedure looks like. Now let's say, for the sake of argument, that this didn't happen. This guy was still here, and I was over here. If that had happened right now, and there was no battle initiated because there was no Raider in my spot, then he would not be able to move in here to initiate a battle. That is not allowed, okay? However, on subsequent turns, if I wanted to, I could, or he could, move to where I am, depending on the way it goes, and we could fight amongst ourselves. And if none of those Raiders are in range, they sit the battle out. However, if they are in range, they will join up. But if I, on a subsequent turn, had this presence right here, it would be legal for me to move one of my guys over here or over here and initiate a battle after completing all of the normal turns on that space. And I just want to say, it's worth you making sure that you really read this section carefully in the rules about initiating battle, because it's a little bit I don't know, it's just a little bit screwy in my mind. Okay, whoops. Because that's a little weird. So it says, during the final step, the active region is occupied for 2 or more players or 1 player and a raider, a battle must be resolved, okay? So that means the active region, where you went. But there are ways in other situations where if it's not the active region, 2 of those ships can be in a spot. So for instance, if you move for whatever reason in some way because of a card, and now all of a sudden at the end of a turn, you have this situation, but this is where you went in the first place, that is totally okay. It stays that way, okay? So just take a look at that to be clear. All right, now let's just talk about one little wrinkle here. Let's say I move here. This is my second move now, all right? My second time I'm going to put someone on the board. I must put it in the spot that is adjacent to this or within range, okay? Well, within range, basically, with whatever guy I have. So for instance, this person's range is 2. That means I could move to any of these locations on my second move, or I could move to any of these locations. I'm not allowed to move to the place where my ships are, all right? Once I'm there, that's the only way I can be there, and I have to get out of there before I can go again. That is not true for the Unity player. The Unity player can move into his own places. It doesn't obey any of those movement rules. But since this guy has a range of 2, I have some more flexibility. I can move out there a long way. If it was this person right here, it only has a range of 1, so that means I'd have to move into one of these locations if I wanted to. All right? So that is the launch turn. Now, there's another type of turn you could take, which is called return to station. And for example, I'm going to show return to station like this. So we are going to just focus on my stuff, for instance, for this moment. When you return to station, the first thing you are going to do, we'll put one of these guys up here. The first thing you're going to do is that in any order, you're going to use your ships that return, and you're going to, and if you've repaired them. So there are 2 places that they can be out here. They can be in the scrapyard, okay, or they can be in the repair bay or the repair barge. If they're in the repair barge, you're going to be able to use them to activate your modules. If they're in the scrapyard, they're not allowed to. So what you're going to be doing is you're going to, in any order you want, take your ships from the board or the repair barge and place them on these modules to activate them. You can place them at any module you want, and you will take that action with the exception of these science modules. In order to do the science module, you must place it on the primary reactor and gain 2 energy, and then use those energy in subsequent spaces to activate them, okay? So you can't play it anywhere but this first place on the board, and then you'll use the energy tokens you get, the 2 of them, to subsequently activate more of these or any other energy. Now, the other thing about this is you can use energy to activate any module as long as one of your ships is on that module beforehand. So if I was to place a person here, I could use this energy to activate this module too. When you've activated a module that has a moon token between it, you will get that reward right away. You do not pick this up, you just get whatever it says. And when you activate these modules and check all of the rule books, you will do exactly what it says. So for instance, here you'll collect a credit. Here you get a point, a credit. You and every other player will get a nanocarbon. But in the case of the Unity player never gets resources. They will always take a tactic card, all right, from the deck and just put it into their hand. They never use those. They will just score those at the end, okay? So there's a variety of things you can do, and some of them don't get activated. Like this one right here is an end game situation. So is this. So those never get activated at all. But that's what you're doing. You are removing your ships from the board or from the repair barrage in order to activate those. Then you are going to return all your ships to the launch bay and fully repair them, meaning every one of your ships that you have built will go back to these spots in the launch bay. All right. Every other one that you had on the board, I mean, they're not going to be on the board. You're going to put them on there, but you see what I'm saying? And if you had one in the scrapyard now, this is when it would go back. Okay? Any of the ships that you have not purchased, stay away. They are not in play at this moment. You have to purchase the ships later through one of the base actions. Okay. At that point, then, you heal any damaged ships. The only way you have a damaged ship usually is here, okay? So this ship, if you had damage on your heavy cruiser, you would remove that damage token, and that would be it. The heavy cruiser will be scrapped if it takes a second damage after taking the first damage with the shields. And that is what happens on a return to station turn. And then you also discard any energy that you used to activate your modules. You're just going to discard that. All right. So that covers all the main actions, the two main actions for this game and how you deal with them. Now let's talk about the events. So I told you before that the events are triggered as people are moving around that event token, right? So once this event token moves here, because people were triggering any of the icons that show that area, that exclamation mark, the first thing you will do immediately is you will remove this token and put it on the person who triggered it. You'll put it on their area. Then you will immediately draw the top card from the planet deck, reveal it, put it in the next open space going left to right, top to bottom, and put a stack of 3 moons, flipping the top one over, right on that space. That will happen immediately, right away. Okay? You will then complete your turn in full, and then you will activate the event card. At that point, you will flip over the event card. You will activate it from top to bottom, meaning you will count up the where you are in this track. So, for instance, I said a long time ago, I'm at 9, he's at 8, so it's 9 minus the number of damage on the modules. So I have 1 damage on my module, which I can repair with a repair action, which I'll talk about at the very end, all the various actions. He doesn't have any, so he would get 8 points, and I would score 9 minus 1 is 8, and I would score them. Chances are an event is going to be what crosses you over the threshold to trigger the end of the game, but it also can be triggered in a couple other ways. Once someone meets or exceeds this token over here, which you'll choose at the beginning of the game, whether you want a short, a medium, or a long game, then you, as the triggering person, will finish your turn, and then all other players will take that 1 additional turn. That means if you or the bot triggers, whoever triggers, they'll finish their turn, they'll still get 1 more turn, okay? Once the game's ends, you will then score all the end game points, okay? And the end game points are listed on the back of the end game scoring is listed right on the back of this instruction booklet for the escalation expansion. I should also mention, because we were just talking about the scoring here, but right here, the next thing you're going to do is you're going to summon the raider that matches this particular callout. So in this case, Raider C. And Raider C, if it's already on the board, you'll actually summon one of the Raider S values. If it's not on the board, you pick up the card, you put it out, you do exactly what it says. So for instance, C in this case is the Galactic Kraken, and it says, begins on the Maximus field. So you know where the Maximus field is. Happens to be right here. You put them here. You read this and you make sure you understand completely how it's going to work. This one it rolls 5 dice. It has a range of 1. It has an extra targeting value, so it's going to have a targeting value of 2 instead of just 1. It has shields, and then it has something here special about it. Okay, so that's how more of these raiders are going to enter the board through the event cards. And then you'll do whatever the bottom says here. Now, some event cards will have something specific, like this one, where it'll say each player may activate their primary reactor. Well, that doesn't apply to the Unity player, so the Unity player is just going to gain a science or do whatever it says down here, okay? And you have to find these, depending whichever event deck you have, you've got to put these replacement cards in for the solo player before you start the game. All right, now let's just quickly talk about the variety of different actions. We've gone over some of them. We went over the planet ones, I don't have to explain that. We went over the nebula ones, I don't have to explain that. We've talked about this. These are how you're going to get the 4 different types of modules. Whenever you build a module, you build it in your area. It says that you can organize your modules however you want and reorganize them. So that might come into play depending on what you want to do. That's how those work. This is a very important one. This is how to build a development. So to build a development, you have to, when you go there, so you basically go to that spot with anything you want, and you have to trigger that action, you have to have a transport on an undeveloped planet. Then you pay the specific number of leaders, in this case it says 2, from your leader pool. Okay, so you set those out of the game. You will then take the appropriate standee and you will put it inside your area. You also have to spend the specific resources, in this case 3 titanium, to build that. Okay, and those are printed on the board depending on what it is. So this one only requires 2, but that one requires 3. That one requires 2. So there's a little bit of variation. Now you can spend credits as a wild for titanium, ice, and nanocarbon. And these are what the credits look like. Okay. When you do that, you immediately will score for that area. And what the scoring looks like is you get 1 point for each leader that it costs to build this, in this case 2, plus any points for leaders that are on the board or in adjacent development areas. So here it's only 3 points. However, if I was to build this one this turn, let's just say I was doing that, this would be 2, 5, 6, 7, 8. That'd be an 8-point build the way it's standing right now. So building those development tiles are very important. Then you will get the card that goes to the corresponding development. In this case, it's a factory. They're all the same cards. This is what the solo ones look like. They have a solo icon down here to tell you what the solo person is going to do when it takes it. For you, you can spend this at any time in the game to do, well, anytime during your turn, pardon me, to do 2 repair actions, and then you flip the card over, and then this reminds you at the end of the game, you're going to score for that development based on where you are on the track, level 1, 2, or 3, okay? And that's how those work. So that's the development area, very important area. Then there's one that's pretty simple. This is just the trade hub. You take 2 resources, you turn them into 2 credits. All right, any resources. Shipyard. So the shipyard is where you either build 1 ship or you repair a ship. Take a repair action, pardon me. Repair action goes in 3 ways. Number 1, a repair action is how you can move a scrap ship to this area. What that allows you to do is use him to activate your modules later. You can remove a damage marker on your shield, or you can remove a damage token from one of your damaged mods. And the modules come damaged in lots of cases. So notice here, this one comes damaged, that one comes damaged, that one comes damaged. So it happens that they are damaged that way, and they may be damaged in other ways, other effects in the game, but they come damaged in a lot of cases, which is why you're going to be repairing them. So you maximize your turn. Plus, each damage module at the end of the game is worth -2 points. You don't want that. All right, so those are the base game. Oh, and then there's this one. This allows you to take 2 resources of any type and get 3 tactic cards. And you do have a hand limit of your tactic cards. It's normally 5, but it can get to be bigger as this goes up. Okay, and you have to discard down your hand limit at the end of your turn. All right. So that is the whole entirety of how to play the game. And I don't think I've forgotten anything. Oh, well, I know I told you about the ships. I told you about, to build the ships. I told you about upgrading them. But to build the ships, you have to pay the resources listed over here. And you can only build what you still have left in your area. Once you've built the ship, it will always come back to your area or your launch bay. Even once it's scrapped, it'll come back after you do a return. So it's kind of like you're paying for the blueprints almost. The rest of it is just, once you got it, you got it. Now let's talk about the Unity ship, or the Unity actions in detail here. So, a couple things about Unity. Number 1, their board presence is very important. So I'm going to go ahead and scan or zoom right in on this, okay? On their turn, they're going to roll a white die, and that is going to determine what action they're going to take. So if they roll a white die and they roll a 1, 2, or 3, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to trigger a move on the event. We'll move that event token 1 space. Then you're going to do exactly what it says. In this case, it's launch to the rightmost undeveloped planet. Okay, let me get this out of here. The rightmost undeveloped planet is a planet, not a base, and it is one that does not have any development on it, okay? You're going to launch the next ship in line. So see how this ship is already on the board? You're going to take this one and you're going to launch with it. If you had rolled this, a 4 or 5, you would resolve this card. You take this action first. In this case, it would try to develop if it can first. And if it can't, and it can't. And then you would launch this ship. And over here, it wouldn't take anything special. You would move to the shipyard, and you'd move this ship here. In this case, remember I talked to you about this probe? The way this is going to work is it's going to try to move to the space over here to the left of the probe. If it can't, it always is going to move where the probe is. The probe only is placed when you place in a base or in a planet, not in a nebula. There is no way that the Unity player can move to a nebula. Okay? All right. So the Unity player is always going to recruit any leaders that it finds in its place. It's always going to take the bonus resources that are there. If whenever it takes a resource, it's never going to actually take the resource. It's just going to draw one of its tactics cards, or one of the tactic cards. Okay? It never plays those either. It's just going to use them for scoring at the end. All right. So anytime it repairs, it is going to try to repair a module first. Once it's repaired all its modules, then it will repair a ship that's been scrapped, and then it will repair a damaged ship. Okay, but it will always try to repair its modules first. It will do the battles and everything else, the Raider Strike, all the same as you would. Everything is the same at that point. And basically, you're going to, at the end of its turn, discard the card that it activated, like this one, for instance, and flip a new one, so you kind of know what's going to happen. When it returns to station, well, let me just tell you this. When it takes an action on a planet, it's going to do exactly what you do on this planet. It'll take this, except it doesn't get the resource here. It just saves this moon for 2 points at the end of the game. Okay, but it will remove it. If there's a bonus resource, it's going to take that resource. It's going to discard it. It's going to get a tactical icon. If it goes to a base, it is going to recruit any leaders it might have there, put it in its leader pool, and then it is going to move on this rondel one space, okay? So anytime it goes to a base, it's going to move on this space, do exactly what it says. In this case, it would be take a blue mod, and then by taking the blue mod, you would then take the cheapest one that's available on the bottom of the track, and you would move up on your on the corresponding progress track, okay? Because you always move up when you take a module. In the case over here, it would move the event, and it would move up on the supremacy track, and then it would try to develop. It always can develop as long as it has the situation right here. As long as it has a transport and it's not developed, then it can develop as long as it has leaders. So it's still going to spend the leader amount, in this case 2, but it never spends the resources. So you would just take the 2 leaders, you discard them from the game, and you would do the exact same thing that you would, as I showed you before, with the scoring and the card and everything else, following the specific instructions of the card, and it would do it identically to what you're going to do. It battles the same way you do, and pretty much the rest of it's the same. Now, the only other difference that what it will do is when it does the return to station, the first thing it's going to try to do is it's going to try to develop first, okay? So it's going to build a development if possible before it moves any of its things off the board, all right? And that's why it's such a vicious, I mean, it's a very aggressive bot. So before it does anything else, it's going to say, hey, oh, I got one, I can do it. I'm going to go ahead and develop. And then it's going to advance the command marker, which is what that little marker is, one space for every ship that's on the board or in the repair barrage. And you're going to just carry that out one at a time, one at a time. If it has anything after that in the scrapyard, it's going to gain 2 points, okay? But not for things in the repair barrage, just in the scrapyard. And then finally, it's going to return all its ships to this area. It's going to remove any damage token it might have, and it will return the ships to the lowest number first. Why is that important? Because let's say I only have 2 of these, okay? Or let's say I have this many to return, okay? I will put it on number 1 first, then number 2, then number 3. I'm leaving 4, 5, and 6 vacant because those are on the board. They're how to play. And so they're already developments. So that means that next time it goes to take a turn, it might be quicker in having to do a return to station. And it only does the return to station when it goes to draw the card and there are no ships there. Then it will activate its return to station move. Otherwise, it's going to do a move. It's going to do a placement move. And when you do that, you ignore the action on the card. You do discard it, though. It will, at the very end of the game, its final turn will always be a return to station no matter what. unless it's got everybody back here and there's nobody to return to station, then it will do a launch move like normal. So there is a lot to digest in this, and that's where these things are very important. It also, when it does progress, instead of the ship upgrades like you have, it will draw these random ship tokens and do whatever it says. Some of them will give them permanent abilities like this, +1 targeting for the rest of the time. This one gives you 2 moves on any of the tracks. It's going to move according to its rules. Usually it's the ones that are on the lowest, I believe. I haven't looked at that a little bit, but just check the rule book for that one, or the frequently asked questions. It tells you how it handles all the progress tokens here. It tells you how it scores here. It tells you how it does its developments here, and it tells you the differences in battle here. Very important that you read those, make sure you understand it. And its turn sequence, again, everything I just said, right here, which is really nice. Okay? So refer to this for any specifics, but that's how it's going to work. It's going to roll the dice. It's going to go where the card is. It's going to do what it says. It's not too bad, but there's just a lot to take in with this game. At the very end of the game, you are going to score according to the modules you might have added in and everything else that is on here. So just follow these areas top to bottom. It's actually pretty easy to score at the end. It's just listed all right here. Don't forget to score the modules, because I don't see modules on here, but there's definitely, you might have them to score on your own. It says damage here, but like for instance on these, yeah, it doesn't say. See, this is an end game, tells you to score here, but I don't see anything calling out specifically the modules. It says the tracks, it says developments, it says quasars and vortex and vaults and leaders, etc., but it doesn't talk about that. So don't forget that little spot there. All right. I really hope this was informative and helpful for you learning the game. It's a great game, but it takes some doing to get into. There's no doubt about it. So thanks again for watching. I really appreciate it. And whatever you do in the future, I really hope you have a fantastic time doing it. And if I made any rules mistakes, please correct me. I'll pin them in the comments below this video. Take it easy, everybody.